Okay, so we are live, and I have another Marvel Legends figure to unbox today, and it's Doctor Strange. It's Doctor Strange from the comic book, which is even better than Doctor Strange from the movie, if you ask me. I always like to have the comic book versions of the figures because that's what I grew up with. So nothing against Bumbershoot Camembert, who's like a great actor, and I think did a good job playing Doctor Strange. And the first movie was pretty good, and the second movie was it was better than the Batman. People who are fans of that Robert Pattinson Batman movie are always bragging that it made like $700 million, as if that's a big deal. Like I'm like that Doctor Strange movie that everybody hates made more money. Yeah, you can see I shaved my head, so I'm looking good today. So yeah, got a nice piece of artwork on the back from Kevin Nolan, a terrific comic book artist. He was a guy who was working on Doctor Strange comics when I was a kid, so I very much remember his artwork on that. So got a little bit of a bio in several languages again because Hasbro is cheap like that. Stephen Strange was a brilliant surgeon before an accident ruined his hands. Now he defends our reality from supernatural threats as Earth's Sorcerer Supreme. So, yeah, pretty cool. And you can see he comes with a lot of nifty accessories. So let's go ahead and open this bad boy up. I had found him a few months back. I think it was around Christmas time. Uh, and when I found him, it was a long time after this figure had been released. So I was kind of surprised to see him at my Walmart. I figured he was probably just something that got stuck in the back, and they found him when they were bringing out Christmas toys. And I just got lucky because I had been looking for this figure and never found him. And then all of a sudden, there he was. It was a Christmas miracle. So yeah, let's go ahead and get him opened. And Doctor Strange does not come with a Build-A-Figure part. He was just a single figure that was released as an exclusive to Walmart. But you can see he does come with a ton of accessories that we can go over. So first of all, we've got some of these energy effects, and Marvel Legends collectors should be very familiar with these energy effects. I've had these with several figures, from the Scarlet Witch to Dazzler to I think Polaris came with some, and all kinds of different colors. Dazzler ones are rainbow colored, so I really like those. Those were nice. So got some extra hands. Got this big old axe, which this is something that's been in the more recent comic books. I'm not too familiar with that. If it was in any older comic books, it was in older comic books that I missed. Unfortunately, it looks like the silver plastic that you used on this blade. You can even kind of tell on the camera a little bit, I think. The silver plastic they use on this blade lacks some opacity. So you can it's kind of translucent when it gets down to the more narrow parts of the edge. So that's unfortunate. So we have two alternate heads for Doctor Strange, and one of which, this one I am familiar with, because I read the older comics, and this was from when they tried to do. Oh, I'm going to turn this light on so we got a little bit more. They tried to do a little bit more of a standard superhero thing with Doctor Strange, where he had like a secret identity and everything, and this was the mask that he wore when he was in the identity of Doctor Strange. So I think his secret identity name during that time was like Dr. Stevens or something like that. And but that didn't take. I think they decided it was better to just go back to the way Doctor Strange was before. It I guess didn't get them any extra readers. So like the main Doctor Strange comics I was familiar with actually weren't Doctor Strange. They were the Defenders, which at that time, your main guns of the Defenders would have been the Incredible Hulk, the Submariner, and Doctor Strange. And of course, I was always a huge fan of the Incredible Hulk. So I remember seeing, the Hulk on the cover of a comic book with a bunch of other superheroes, and I'm like, "Mommy, buy me this Hulk comic, please." And she's like, "It's not a Hulk comic, it's the Defenders." And I'm just like, it's got the Hulk on the cover. I had this conversation with her a lot. I remember having it about like an issue of Iron Man that the Hulk was guest starring in, and like, yeah, I don't care if he's not the main character of the book. It's still got the Hulk in it, and that was what appealed to me. So, okay, so we got another Doctor Strange head, and this one has his eyes closed, so like a meditative type of Doctor Strange. You can have some fun with that. And last but not least, and like this is probably my favorite of all the extra accessories, is we have the Wand of Watum, which not only ties in with Doctor Strange, but also ties in with Spider-Man, because this was the artifact that was the MacGuffin in the Amazing Spider-Man annual. I think at that time they called the annuals king-size specials, but the one where Spider-Man and Doctor Strange teamed up, and illustrated by Steve Ditko, who created both Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, and I consider to be like probably the finest illustrator of either character. All right, so there's a funny little piece here that was at the top of his head. Pulled that out, and let's see. He doesn't look to have any rubber bands or anything like that, which Hasbro's been really good about this lately. But they did the thing where they put the tape through this hole in the tray. So I'm going to try to get that out without scratching up the paint on it. I think I did a good job. And here is Doctor Strange in all of his glory. Pretty decent head sculpt. He looks kind of like somewhere in between Pierce Brosnan and Burt Reynolds. like a 1-1 translation. If you put them into some kind of like a face blending app, I think this is what you would come up with. So, and he does have some cool Ditko hands. Those are what actually come on the figure. These elbow joints seem a little stiff, so I'm going to be very careful with those. I think that actually turns around this away. Since it is a wrinkly sleeve and it doesn't have much anatomy on it, I have to go by actually how the joint, how low the joint goes on either side. And obviously, the lower the joint goes, the more likely it is that it's the forward-facing one. So, too much rock and roll for one hand. Oh yeah. So I just kind of glossed over the other extra hands when we pulled them out of the package. But here's the extra right hand, and it's a gripping hand. And here is the extra left hand, and it is a fist. So there we go. So let's go ahead and put some of these extra accessories on him and see how he looks. First of all, I'm going to do the superhero mask and pop that on there. And the thing that kind of disappoints me about this is that his neck is still flesh colored, whereas it should be like just flush blue all the way down. Now, obviously, this is not what his costume looked like at that time, because again, they were trying to make him more of a standard superhero, so he had more of an all spandex look rather than this little short robe that you traditionally think of Doctor Strange as having. So, you know, but still, I kind of feel like it's a fun little accessory. It's a fun little nod to classic Doctor Strange. The hardcore fans, they're going to know what that's about, and they're going to appreciate it. Even though, like I said, not a perfect representation of the character during that time period, but you know, it's nice to have some kind of representation of it. This neck joint's a little stiff, and that's making it hard for me to get the heads on all the way. Dang it, popped right back off. And here he is with his eyes closed in his meditative state. And just because of the way I have him posed right now, it looks like he's grooving to his playlist. What do you think Doctor Strange likes to listen to? Like, I think probably like some psychedelic kind of rock, maybe like some smooth jazz every now and then. So yeah, let's see how well, while I'm thinking about it, his leg articulation works, because I think this would be a good head to have on here while we cross his legs. Let's see how deep we can get these legs to cross. Oh, that's pretty cool. So he can be sitting there levitating in a meditative state, searching through the astral plane, that kind of thing. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so we'll go ahead and put the legs back down. So he does have the standard Marvel Legends articulation, but it appears, I think this cape might not be removable. It looks like it's glued on at the Eye of Agamotto. So while you can position it somewhat on the figure and shift it around a little bit, I don't think it's meant to be articulated, and I don't think it's meant to be removed. So the articulation will be somewhat hampered by this gigantic cape. Like, technically his arms should rotate all the way around, but they're going to bump into his cape. You can get it to rotate all the way around, I'm sure, with a little bit of effort, so that's not going to be a problem. He does have, as I pointed out before, some really good articulation at the elbows. Now, these are not double jointed elbows. They are just simple injected molded elbows. But due to the way that they've actually sculpted this sleeve, you can still get a really good range of motion out of it. Maybe not quite as good as if it actually was a double elbow, but still pretty good. And there is not an articulation at between the deltoid and the bicep, but you can rotate this forearm all the way around, and that can get you just about as many poses as if, you know, it did have that bicep cut. I kind of feel like if you can turn the elbow all the way around one way or the other, it doesn't really matter. And having both an elbow rotation like that and a bicep cut, you don't really need it. So he's got an ab crunch here, and again, we could probably get it to be a little bit better if get a little bit more of a range of motion out of it, if not for the cape being in the way. And then, of course, since he's got this short robe, you can only move his legs up about so far. Now, it is kind of split at the side, and it does kind of, at least on this side, it's split. It doesn't seem to be on this other side. So that does aid a little bit, but, you don't want Doctor Strange to not have his proper robe. So I kind of feel like that's a fair trade-off. So then kind of standard Marvel Legend legs, you can rotate them all the way around like this. Double jointed knees. Does have a boot cut, so you can rotate it at the shin, and then these kind of rocker ankles. So yeah. So we're going to take that head back off of him, and we're going to put the standard head back on, because that's the one I'm going to wind up leaving on here. And let's go ahead and play with some of these extra hands a little bit, since that's the only way he can hold his accessories is with the extra hands. Now, that having been said, I'm a little disappointed that both of these extra hands aren't gripping hands. But if you want to use two gripping hands, I would suggest you use this. That should he should be able to hold two things and hold one thing in two hands. If you use that, I'll demonstrate in a minute. First, let's do the Wand of Watum. So I want to see what he looks like while he's holding that. And there we go. There he is with the Wand of Watum. Now with this axe, this is one that I would want to have a two-handed pose in. So what I'm going to do, so that he can at least somewhat grip this axe with two hands, I'm going to put the spellcasting hand back on here. And since he does have those kind of pinched fingers, you can actually get him to grip it with two hands. Now he's going to look kind of like he's got his pinky extended for drinking tea or something like that. But I think it still works. It's still functional anyway. It might not be ideal, but it still works, I think. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so now that we've done that, I'm going to put his spellcasting hands back in, because those are the ones that I'm going to leave as his default hands. And then we can have a look at these energy effects. And again, these are pretty standard Marvel Legends effects. And I tried to put the larger one on first, since he is a male character, but it's just going to go over his wrists, so it's not actually like that tight. So I'm going to try this one, which I think is more intended for females, but it's not going to hurt if it gets stretched out a little bit, I don't think. So it is going to be a very tight fit, though. So yeah, if I was going to push it all the way up on a character's forearm, this larger one would work. But I'm just going to take the hand off and do it that way. Works smarter, not harder, right? Oh, you are being frustrating right now. Don't break it. Yeah, so that's kind of stretched it out of shape a little bit, but it does fit on there rather tightly. So there we go. Casting a spell. And that does look pretty cool. I do like how these shapes are kind of like generic enough that they can work for about any kind of character with any kind of, light-based powers, be it casting a magical spell or projecting some kind of energy blast or even something like telekinesis. Like I said, the ones that came with Disco Dazzler were kind of rainbow colored, which I liked because like that I felt fit the character pretty well. But Doctor Strange just has ones that are kind of like they're translucent yellow plastic with a little bit of red and orange detailing to them. It kind of fades from red into orange, kind of. But it looks good. I think that looks good. So anyway, I was really glad that I was finally able to find this Doctor Strange figure. I was really worried that I wasn't going to be able to find him, so I was pleasantly surprised when I did stumble across him at Walmart. They did a pretty good job with his cape. I don't know how well it's coming across, but you can see like it's actually got some of the detail sculpted into it. It looks good. It's got a lot of folds and, like I said, the detail in the trim that's even coming across on the camera. So I think that looks good. And he's got the kind of demon sculpted into his chest, and it's just a slightly different shade of blue from what's on the rest of the robe, but I think it still stands out enough. So if you can find this guy for a decent price these days, I would highly recommend picking him up, especially if you're like me and you're a fan of like the classic comic style Marvel figures. He's definitely worth having in your collection. To me, Doctor Strange is one of those characters where he's like he's kind of a staple character, and you definitely want to have him, especially if you read Defenders when you were a kid like me. And I would imagine he's going to look really good when I have him posed with the rest of my Defenders figures. I know I have Hulk and Submariner and Valkyrie and Nighthawk and Hellcat. I have Hellcat, and pretty much any other figure I want to put in there, because the Defenders were a non-team. They were just a loosely knit group of adventurers. So occasionally you might have somebody swing by, like Luke Cage or Daredevil or the Angel, and they weren't like necessarily full members because the Defenders didn't really have full members. But they did have, several recurring cast members that, that tended to be, Defenders more often than not. And Doctor Strange was definitely one of those that you would want to have as part of that set. So, and even if you don't really care about the Defenders, if you're just like a general Marvel Comics fan, like this is a good guy to have on your shelf. So I definitely recommend Doctor Strange if you can find him. Like I said, it was kind of a miracle that I found him when I did. And I'm just now getting around to opening him, and I'm pretty happy with the result. This is a great figure, and I like it a lot. So that's pretty much it for this episode. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe and all the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about Doctor Strange. I do these as live streams mainly for my own convenience, so it's not really intended to be like the type of live stream that I interact with the chat a whole lot. But I never mind interacting with the chat. So if you want to know when I'm going to go live, make sure you hit that little bell down there, and that'll warn you when I'm about to go live, and you can come in and interact with me in the chat. Like I said, I don't really like it's not really my plan, but I never mind doing it, and in fact, I quite like doing it. So that's pretty much it for this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.